Thanks for listening to Entre Nido, the show where we help you live the Nido life. By listening to Entre Nido, you'll learn how to develop multiple streams of income. You'll hear amazing stories and takeaways from professionals in their field. And you'll learn more about yourself and how you're wired. The average person spends 90,000 hours at work in their lifetime. Student loan debt is at an all-time high, and 41% of all divorce is based on finances. If you feel like you're surviving, but you wouldn't exactly say you're thriving, then you've come to the right place. Whatever stage of life you're in, Entre Nido is here to help you be a better entrepreneur. Break out of that rat race and start living your Nido life today. And now introducing your Nido host, Matt Neff.
Welcome back to Entre Nido. On the show today, we have Enneagram 7, Michele Williams. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. So glad you're listening in today. Our guest today is Michele Williams. She is a Enneagram 7, and we are talking about the power of Wabi-Sabi. If you're not sure what Wabi-Sabi is, don't Google it. Just listen through. It's going to be amazing. It's a really beautiful concept. Michele and I talk about the power of the Enneagram 7. She is a 7 as well as myself, and we look at some cool things about that. Michele also runs a women's mastermind group, which is amazing. Make sure you check that out. We'll have all the information in the show notes. Michele is also an executive recruiter in wireless and Internet of Things. She considers herself a growth evangelist, and she also works with the Trevally Group. For more information on Michele, you can check out her LinkedIn page. Also want to give a shout out to Chad and Katie Berkheimer, who made this episode possible. My wife and I celebrated 20-year wedding anniversary in Mexico, and for some reason, at the end of the week when we left, my laptop was dead. So Chad and Katie heard about it, and I tried to purchase one, and they actually gave me a MacBook Air, which I so appreciate, the one that I edited this interview on. So thank you again to Chad and Katie. Great people. And check out Katie's business. She does cakes and cupcakes, things like that. So if you're in the Ohio area near Columbus, her work can be seen at Kindness Batters on Instagram. That's Kindness Batters. Also want to let you guys know about a great book I just finished by Rory Vaden. Hopefully we can get Rory on the show here soon. It's called Procrastinate on Purpose. Unbelievable book. Quick read. It will help you. It will encourage you and help you to stay more focused. So make sure you check that out. We will put link in the show notes as well. So appreciate you tuning in. And if you want to support the show, we'd love for you to by either writing a review or supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/Entre Nido, ENTRENEATO. Thanks again for listening, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Welcome back to Entre Nido. My guest today is Michele Williams. Michele, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm super psyched to be here.
So excited today. We've been riffing on we can go in about 100 different directions, but we're only going to pick one direction today because clarity is important. And I'm super excited to talk about our fun word today. But before we jump in, would you please just promote away anything you'd like to share with our audience? We could drive them to websites, books, social media, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the easiest way to reach me, really, if you want to go in two directions. One is our mastermind for women. It's called The Best Version of You, or www.b, V as in Victor, U as in umbrella, mastermind.com. And that really is, a community of women. We are really feeding into each other and pushing each other forward to be the best version of ourselves. So there's that. And then also I always just like to give out my email because I really like to connect with people. And that's mojowilliams16@gmail.com.
Perfect. mojowilliams16@gmail.com. Okay.
Yeah.
We will put all that in the show notes as well so people can listen and be on their phone at the same time. So Michele, we've never met before. This is the first time we're talking. So I love backstory. Love to know where kind of you were and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, no, thanks for this. And it's interesting whenever I go back through and kind of recount the story is that I'm grateful for Marie Forleo who introduced me to the term of multi-passionate entrepreneur. It gave me a lot of freedom to run, and kind of own the unfocusedness that we often get titled with as we try different ventures and things like that. But going back, to early days, I've got the kind of entrepreneur story as a sixth grader is when I started hawking fireballs in the back of our school bus. I realized fairly quickly I had a captive and hungry audience at a private school, so they tended to have some change in their pocket, and started wheeling and dealing fireballs in the back of the bus. And
I love this. This is great.
Isn't that great?
I'm like totally there right now. You put me there. That's amazing.
And it ended up, this is so funny and it cracks me up, is that it ended, so I'd have my mom take me to the candy store to buy wholesale bulk Fireballs, and I'd package them up and sell them on the back of the bus. And it ultimately ended because the school said that I needed to either cease or split my profits. And so that party came to a quick close.
What was the percentage they were asking for? It was like a 50-50?
That's right.
Oh,
yeah.
That's pretty daring of them. Wow, 50%.
Of a sixth grader too, like,
yeah, they knew.
How about you promote, the business lessons that could be learned, or, encourage me to share it with other people, the lessons and the opportunities. But no, they were interested in the profits. And so,
and then how much would it actually be generating? That's what's great to me. Like this school would be wanting to see how much are we talking here? If it's 50%, it's not like it's going to be that much, honestly. So
that's exactly right.
That's hilarious.
Really.
That's my favorite thing I've heard today. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and so then from there, I started, I actually opened my first business, when I was 27 in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was a tourism packaging, business. And now I'm kind of showing my age and dating myself here on this one, because it was an era before things were packaged in combinations. Like the Orbits didn't exist, where you bought your airfare and your hotel and car rental together. And you didn't even go to Wendy's and buy, a number one combo. You ordered everything separately.
Wow.
I know. And so it seems so commonplace now, but back then I had worked with a tourism company that was in the horse and carriage tours, actually, and I had headed up their marketing. And so I went and worked with all the other key vendors and tour operators in the space and said, what if we develop a package? It was called the Best of Charleston, actually, is what the ticket was. And we cross-sell each other, and we discount it. So as they buy it as one, then, it's a discounted rate. And so it was actually kind of cool. We had Flash on our website at the time, which was unheard of. I think it cost $1 gajillion to build it, but it was, And so that was the first one where I actually launched that one. I ended up selling it to one of the tour operators, and went on to then own a bed and breakfast in Charleston that I flipped.
I love Charleston, by the way, too. I love that city. That's such a great city. The downtown Charleston is beautiful.
I have to say, that's where I went to college. And so I have to say it's a place that is dear to my heart. I'm just about an hour and a half south of there now, down by Hilton Head, but still love Charleston. So so that's where the bed and breakfast was, right on Market Street in Charleston. And then for the last, gosh knows, it's probably going on 14 years now, is that I have owned a recruiting firm, an executive recruiting firm, where I work in the high tech space, in the really geeky, called Internet of Things, which is all like the cool Fitbit watches and IoT, remote thermostats and that sort of thing. So helping small mid-sized companies there hire some key people, and consulting with them on hiring practices and all that stuff.
Oh, that is so cool. So is that like, where are you at today? Because I know you run the masterminds for women, which is awesome. Is that, how long ago was the IoT stuff?
Yeah. So I still do that. So I'm still, that company is called it's called the Trevally Group, working with small, mid-sized companies, pretty selective about really who we work with in that regard, and consult with to really enable and coach them into hiring practices towards key people, how to bring top professionals on board and keep them and retain them and that sort of thing. So I still have that company. And then about a year and a half ago, launched a mastermind for women called The Best Version of You. And that is something I'm super excited about, in part because it's one of those things where you pay attention when somebody asks, you hear somebody asking you, or maybe something crosses your path once, but then you hear it and crosses your path 2 or 3 times, and you start to really take notice. And that's what that was, is within about a 10-day period of time, I had 3 different people come to me and ask if I had considered launching a mastermind. And so
that's the way to do it. Get the customer first,
That's it.
That's great.
Yeah. So I just, what I call following the breadcrumbs. And so I jumped in with 3 people and said, yeah, let's do this. I've been in masterminds myself. I know the value of them. And I had really struggled to find a mastermind specifically for women that was not fluffy and florally and coffee chit chat. I really wanted there to be kind of a gritty, rugged side to it too, but also, full of grace. I'd say it's full of grace and grit. And that's what part of our core values are for the mastermind, for sure. And so that's been going on for about the last year and a half.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, I keep thinking about Charleston, and we had such good food there and great ice cream. And I think, is it Folly Beach? Is that the...
It is.
Is that the one we went
the
to?
Surfer, Bohemian.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I used to live. It's down by Folly Beach. I used to live on that side of town for that reason. It was kind of that... It's kind of the surfer wasn't totally built up and super pretty like some of the rest of Charleston is, but so real.
Yeah. I remember just going there and loving it. Terrible parking, but man, great little beach there. And it was probably good because it's busy, but I mean, it was tough to find a parking spot. I think I parked at the grocery store and walked for like a mile or something. But
that's the place. Interesting enough, when we get hurricanes in town and notices of hurricanes, if you go out to Folly Beach, all of a sudden all of the surfers crawl out of the woodwork, and you can find them at Folly Beach.
Oh, that's so cool. Very cool. Yeah, I loved it. I love the ocean. That's like where I hit my reset button. So for what it's worth, I need to get back down there. But I feel bad. I want to keep talking and ask you more questions about different side hustles you had when you were a middle schooler, because I'm sure there was more than just the fireballs. But I wanted to talk today. You mentioned this off air, and I love this. It's a goofy word. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so I'm always like ready to have fun and change things up. And if there's too much regiment, then I get bored. So you mentioned this word Wabi-Sabi, which is I've never heard before. I phonetically spelled it out, and I actually spelled it right. So it's WABI-SABI, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. That's
Perfect.
right.
So you mentioned that today, and I loved it. I was like, we got to talk about this today. So take it away. I'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah, and shout out to the 7s on the Enneagram.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're a 7.
That's it.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. We just became best friends.
I know, and that's the thing. You get 7s in a room together, and I feel like we could chase rabbits forever. So,
right. So just a bunch of golden retrievers, and
I know, that's exactly right. So Wabi-Sabi, I love when I first heard of this it struck me, and it almost brought tears to my eyes for the reason that, I think it's so important. And I think for women and for men is that so often we focus on our imperfections. And Wabi-Sabi is a Japanese term that really talks about how the imperfections themselves are what make something a masterpiece. And so if you think of some Asian china or pottery, where it's been spun and maybe it's through its natural process has a crack that has developed, or maybe it's a little bit lopsided on one side, is that the tendency is to throw it away because it's not quote unquote perfect.
Sure.
But with Wabi-Sabi is that the notion is that instead of hiding the imperfections or throwing it away and letting it end up on the floor, is that you highlight it. And so with those very cracks is that instead of trying to cover it up or smear it or make it into something else, is that you would pour a different color into it. So maybe it's a black piece of pottery and you pour a turquoise color into the vein of the crack. And so you really highlight it.
Yeah.
With the notion that that is what makes it the masterpiece. Without that crack and without that, quote unquote flaw that so many people would take as being a flaw, that's what truly makes it the masterpiece. And I love that because I feel like we spend so much time in the comparison game or, trying to keep all of our imperfections in the darkness, and
sure.
And trying those things that can inhibit us from really stepping into our best self and living our best selves as we were so intentionally designed to be. And that's what really keeps us with our foot on the brake. And instead looking at things as with the Wabi-Sabi perspective or through the Wabi-Sabi lens, and looking at what is it that we may consider imperfections that truly are what make us the masterpiece, that make us unique, that make us who we are, that they're not imperfections, is that we were so intentionally designed, and we have to take that our maker knew exactly what he was doing when he put those in there, and really highlight them and use them to our advantage.
That's so cool. Like what's kind of your process with it? How have you made this real, like in your life, as far as applying this principle? Because it's a new concept to me, but I totally resonate with it, because I'm like, oh, and I've probably at times been the opposite, where I'm trying to cover and kind of make things like, no, I'm good, and fake it till you make it, and everything's good, and I'm got everything figured out. And it's so obvious when we do that. Like people are just like, wow, this person's so awkward right now. They're being so weird, like. No, I'm okay. Everything's
Yes.
fine. Like my hair's always perfect and everything's good all the time, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, that's adorable.
I know. Yeah. And it's that, I mean, and it's so taxing. It's such a toll to try to uphold this image. And
Yeah.
once we, kind of take that off, I feel like our image is, just layers and layers and layers of things that we've put upon ourselves
Yeah.
from who we were originally designed to be. It's all these layers of all that stuff, just kind of survive and function in today's world. And it's when you start to peel all of that stuff off that you start to realize who you really are and who is your real self and who's your best self. And I think, for me, the Wabi-Sabi has played out in a couple different ways. And another kind of catchphrase that has spoken to me, and it actually came to me when I was on a mission trip in Nigeria last summer, is that actually we went with Scott Beebe's wife. And I think Scott was a guest on one of your previous shows. But,
Yeah.
they have really poured into a small town in Nigeria called Egbe. And my son and I were fortunate to go over there. And one of the things that kept being said to me was come as you are. And I think that really speaks back to the Wabi-Sabi, is that, instead of trying to shut your laundry room door and pretend that you don't have 18 loads of laundry that may be clean and in the hamper that haven't been folded,
Right.
that
Right.
just is, that's just part of you. And for me, one of my things is being a 7 is that I tend to wait till the last minute on a lot of things. And I used to beat myself up about that all the time. Like I would probably wear myself out more about that, of like, why can't you plan ahead? And why can't you do things ahead of time? I know I do things and I probably do my best when it is at the last minute. And that's just part of who I am. I know that I always get it done. I know that it is always really good. And I know that it happens to happen kind of in the 8 to 11th hour. And I've started to kind of own that and say, this is really, how I work. And that's how I work best. It may drive some other people crazy. I've really learned how to lean on some other resources and my VA that can help me in other ways where maybe that's not going to work in some form of fashion in some of the work that I've got to do. But recognizing that, and that's part of myself. I know that some of my best stuff comes out in that 11th hour and being okay with that. Where it might be different from something else. And I have probably spent most of my life, most of my academic career knowing that was probably labeled as an imperfection.
Wow. Yeah, no, I get it, because I feel like I'm probably started reading Enneagram books maybe like 6 months ago at the time of this recording. And I learned that like I'm a 7 and I've done disc profile and Myers-Briggs and what color are you? And there's a million things like, oh, I'm a woodchuck, or I'm a beaver, I'm a falcon, or whatever. There's like a million of them, which Friends character are you and all that. So, which I don't know. I've never done that one. I don't know why I thought of it, but I know it exists on the internet somewhere on BuzzFeed. They have it. But I started kind of wearing my 7-ness more. So for me, I would say I'm a refined, recovering 7. I'm not embarrassed of it, but I've been learning to embrace it more. And so I'm going to be a little bit more of a 1 in the sense, because under pressure, I become a 1. I become a perfectionist. So for me, I get to travel and do music and things like that. So I get like real focused, like if I'm on stage or about to play or whatever, I'm like, okay. In my 7, but what I found, the biggest takeaway I found over this Enneagram journey is my 7 and my 1 are constantly combating each other. My 7 wants to have fun, be impulsive, try new restaurants, take a different way home. My 1 is like, no, that's not efficient, or you're not ready, or it's not perfect. And so I'm like, I've just decided to let my 7 win more than I let my 1 win. And my 1 is a great help. I really appreciate the 1 part of me, because it helps me get things done and be specific and be excellent. But my 7, I just have to let the 7 win. It's like almost like 51-49. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, mine is the same way. And I love how you were saying, like, take a different way home, is that I do that all the time. It's
yeah.
so
Like,
funny.
it's so boring. I don't want to go the same way. Let's go back road. Yeah.
I know. And I have to say, like, I battle with my 1 and my 7s too, in a lot of ways, is that I can be OCD about certain things, but I do that because if it's too chaotic, then I'll lose things. Like, and that's part of my way of managing my 7-ness, which is very 1. But even back to, like using the Enneagram and pointing and who you are and who your real self is, using the Enneagram as a tool to help you uncover that. But then once you really uncover that and use that, I think the Enneagram points us so much into the Wabi-Sabi, or to look at things through the Wabi-Sabi lenses, because it exposes, what could be considered your weaknesses or your sins, or, however it's labeled in the different, in the different books. But that's saying like, here's where you can go into your weakness, but it's not the imperfection. It's not what makes you unworthy. It's the very thing that makes you, and just being aware of that and embracing that and knowing how to regulate that is what then also helps you to be the best version of yourself. Ultimately, it's not ignoring it and saying, oh, you don't have a bad side or you don't have imperfections, but let's understand it. Let's highlight it. Let's own it. That's who we are. And let's, really take that to the positive so that we can grow in that space. Almost like let's recognize it and let's pour the turquoise in there and highlight it. So that's who we are. But let's not let it be our weakness. Let's not let that own us. Let's let that make us the masterpiece.
That's so good. Well, I apologize. We are out of time at this point. This has been so good, though. But one more time before we go, could you just promote a way where people can find out more about you and sign up for one of your masterminds?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I feel like I'm going to hang up the phone and call you back just so that we can go and chase rabbits again. But again, you can reach out to me directly. It's mojowilliams16@gmail. And then the mastermind is bvumastermind.com.
Perfect. Michele, thank you so much. It's so nice to meet another 7.
I know, you too. I love it. Thanks again for inviting me on.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
You bet. Have a great one.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of EntreNito. We'd like to invite you to visit us on the web at EntreNito.com. And here's some of the neato things you can expect when you get there. As a token of our appreciation for tuning in, you can download a free audiobook. And that's thanks to our friends at Audible. You can purchase your very own super official, super comfy, and super trendy Neato t-shirt. Looking to take your life and business to the next level? You can sign up for a free coaching call. Have a question or comment for us? You can click contact and connect with us. All of this and more is waiting for you at EntreNito.com. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our show and stay current on all the amazing interviews with our Neato guests. Now take what you've learned and apply it and start living your Neato life now.